Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, welcome to this high-level panel dedicated to the aspiration toward UN Water 26 Water Conference. Thank you. We welcome you in this high-level panel with a high-level representative from countries, from international institutions. Welcome to this high-level panel. We will have 3 speeches at the opening remarks. His Excellency Anis Sewilam will give welcome words. And after the opening remarks by the co-host of the UN 26 UN Water Conference, His Excellency Dr. Cheikh Tidiane Dièye will take the floor, and His Excellency Shaima Karkash, former UAE envoy on climate and now Director of Energy and Sustainability Affairs at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of UAE. Thank you for being here. We are also with Mr. Xavier Sierra, Mark Smith, Hiruki, the representative from Namibia will join us later. His Excellency Minister Majodina from South Africa, His Excellency Abula from Iraq, His Excellency Cheikh Tidiane Dièye, His Excellency Dr. Dr. Anis Sewilam, His Excellency Karga Karkash, Joseph Oussepe, Florica Florigil from UE, from EU, Mike Van from Holland, Pays-Bas, and Stefan, Alex Simalawi, Sarin Malik. A round of applause, please, for these high-level speakers. Welcome. Your Excellency, you have the floor for your welcome word. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I just would like to welcome Your Excellencies and all the participants in this session. And the main reason that we are sponsoring and supporting this session is to help the big bosses on my right and my left in Senegal and UAE in the next step of organizing the UN Water Conference and in 2026. And I think this is a very important event that we all have to have a kind of common understanding on how we are going to proceed. What's interesting for us is to continue the role that we are trying to play with you all as partners and strategic partners and international partners in positioning the water at the heart of climate action. So this is a core interest of Egypt, with the support, of course, of many global partners. And this is a process that we in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of Water Resources, that we collaboratively with the Ministry of Environment, trying with a great support from the international community or the international water community, tried to push in the COP27. And it had impact that the water was cited 5 times in the cover decision of the COP27, then came directly after UN Water Conference in New York I think in March 2023. And the water community worked together in order to further push the agenda of water and climate. And I have to thank the Japanese government for working very close with us in co-chairing the interactive dialogue number 3 on water and climate, because this interactive dialogue have resulted in very important messages. One of them that was creating an inter-COP mechanism to follow up and to continue the efforts from COP to COP. And not really every time we start from the beginning. We need to have an inter-COP mechanism so that it can follow up and further position water at the heart of climate action. I think the next milestone of having UN Water Conference hosted by UAE or coordinated and co-chaired by UAE and Senegal is a very, very important milestone, And I think we will all be supporting you and whatever you need from us, but we want with you to make sure that water will continue in the direction of being positioned high on the climate agenda at the global level. I'm not going to speak much and leave you to continue the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you also for your leadership and Egypt's role on this process. Egypt played a big role on the UN Water Conference 23 as co-chair of Interactive Dialogue 3, Water and Climate with Japan. And they did a great job on this interactive dialogue. Thank you, Your Excellency, for this. Now, I will give the floor to Dr. Cheikh Tidiane Dièye, Minister of Hydraulic and Sanitation, Senegal.
Thank you, Jatta, for giving me the floor. Starting by saying how I am happy to take the floor here on this high-level panel and taking this opportunity to discuss and share our information and views with the participants, starting by congratulating Egyptian government for giving us the opportunity to meet here in Cairo for the Cairo Week, but also all the AMCAO members for the space they are giving us to share information, share experiences, lessons, and so on. But also saying thanks and congratulations to our partner, the United Arab Emirates, with whom we are working on preparing this UN conference on 2026, which will be a key moment on the water agenda in the global level, a good space for all to put forward and to push all the stakes, challenges, and all the good results that we have achieved in the past years. We are starting a journey with United Arab Emirates, but also with all our partners. It is a road from now to 2026, where we want to use all the spaces, all the momentum, all the conferences and forums to discuss with partners, to mobilize stakeholders, to share information, to do consultations, because on this journey, we are all with United Arab Emirates open to take views and recommendations, suggestions, ideas of our partners. Of course, we will be organizing, but it is all of us, our project, our initiative, our what we will take together in order to put it forward. So that's why I can tell you that the Senegalese government will do its best to make it very open, all the process from now to 2026. We think that on these global discussions, in particular on this important resource, which is water, all these stakeholders have to be involved in the process. That's why, of course, all the government partners, the civil society organizations, women and youth would be also involved on all things that we will do, reflections, discussions, and so on. And also even private sector, every partner, stakeholders would be involved on what we will be doing. And we want the main results that have been achieved in 2023, in the last one, we will be building from there to consolidate what have been achieved. As we have now adopted the resolution in September, I think the road now is really open. All the coming global conferences and forums will be used by us, Senegal and United Arab Emirates, to meet and to discuss with partners, to take into account their concerns, their views and opinions, and so on. And next year in Dakar in December 2025, we will also organize a pre-conference. Before 2026, we will organize in Dakar with our partner a meeting where people will come to prepare, to put in the table and discuss the main issue that will be dropped to 2026 in order for us to facilitate and have chance to go to 2026 with concrete decisions, with results that would be that we will be able to implement. So that's what I wanted to say in a few words, and thank you once again. Thank you, and very happy seeing you again here, Shema. Of course, my good brother, Professor Sewilam, for facilitating this, and of course, opening our hands to all of you for any ideas, suggestions, recommendations, anything that you think would be help us on this road, we will be open to take. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. We will build on the stake talk of UN 23, UN Water Conference. Mike, your effort will not be at zero. We will build the next UN Water Conference on the conclusion of the UN 23. And the minister said also that this conference must be inclusive. We must include all players, players in the water sector and players outside the water box. This is a very important message that we heard from the minister. Shema, you have the floor to give your message.
Thank you, my friend. Hello, good afternoon, Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, friends, good afternoon. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today at the 7th Cairo Water Week, and this year it's even more special because it coincides with the 9th Africa Water Week, and which is also my first Water Week, so I'm very excited about that. I also wanted to thank the government of Egypt for organizing this and bringing us all together, allowing us this opportunity to convene all stakeholders to discuss such an important topic. So thank you, Your Excellency. This year's theme is water and climate, building resilient communities, a topic that is very dear to our hearts, especially in the UAE as well. And coming out of COP28, the emphasis has been kind of a continuation of that on water. Because water is the primary medium through which most people experience climate change, at COP28 we were adamant about elevating water within the climate agenda, which you've heard a few excellencies mention. And we were very lucky because we were able to build on the success of COP27, which was the first COP to reference water in the cover decision. Water was an integral part of COP28 and the action agenda, giving it dedicated attention as a standalone pillar, integrating it across the relevant thematic areas. And at the negotiations, we were able to further elevate water, allowing it, introducing it into and embedding it in the global stocktake and the global goal on adaptation. And at COP28, the UAE also announced $150 million in new funding for water scarcity solutions. And we understand the dire need for finance within the water sphere. With that, the UAE launched the Mohammed bin Zayed Water Initiative, committing to raising the importance of water scarcity on the global agenda. And now looking ahead, and as we hand over our role as the COP28 presidency, we are excited to be embarking on a bigger journey on water, moving from the focus on heightening the visibility of water and climate agenda to a broader mission to elevating water within the overall global agenda. And that is through our role as the co-hosts of the UN 2026 Water Conference, which we will be delving into with our dear colleagues from Senegal. And as mentioned, we will be co-hosting it in the UAE in 2026, and the preparatory meeting will be taking place at Senegal. And so we're very excited to continue the engagement, but also take in what you have to that next level of focusing more on the accelerating the implementation of SDG 6. We also ensure the availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all, and so that we want to really make sure that we make a difference. We thank the international community, of course, for entrusting the UAE and Senegal with this, 2 countries from the Global South. So we hope to deliver a conference that brings new perspectives, includes diverse voices, and drives real impact on ground. And as countries from the Middle East and Africa, there's no better place than Cairo Water Week to be having this first public-facing, high-level event on the UN 2026 Water Conference, following the adoption of the modalities resolution, as mentioned by His Excellency Sheikh Tadian. And in this room, we all know how water is foundation and lifeblood of all life on Earth. It sustains people and our shared planet, fuels our human dignity, and connects communities all over the world. And there's a beautiful verse in the Quran that says, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ. And we created from water every living thing. And so, simply put, water brings life. And this is exactly what we want to do, is we want to bring back life into this earth. Give life to the people that don't have water, and allow prosperity and growth. The water crisis is already at our doorsteps, and currently at least 50% of the world's population, around 4 billion people, live under highly stressed water conditions for at least 1 month of the year. And these alarming rates call for urgent, coordinated, and decisive action. And we want everyone to see that the UN 2026 Water Conference as an opportunity to aspire, push boundaries, and reimagine ways of working to truly move the needle on the global water agenda and position water as a fundamental driver for sustainable development, to not only accelerating the SDG 6, but all SDGs. And as mentioned previously, there are a few key principles we would like to, guiding principles we would like to work with for the UN Water Conference. And the first is collective action, which will include all members of the global community, as mentioned earlier. And this includes all important stakeholders, governments, international organizations, NGOs, civil society, academics, and other groups with inclusivity being at the heart of all efforts, where the role of indigenous people, women, youth, and local communities is also fully recognized. And the second guiding principle we look forward to is having it be a very impact-oriented conference. And the third is continuity and sustaining the narrative. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, but rather build on all this great work. And so let's work together on the implementation of the actions at the conference. And there will be many more consultations that will take us up to the preparatory conference in Senegal and have a very action-oriented conference in the UAE in 2026. And thank you all, and we truly look forward to hearing everyone's thoughts and ideas and bringing it to life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency. Implementation, action-oriented conference we heard from your message. I will handle from this moment. Now I will give the floor to Johannes. Johannes is a former member of the President General Assembly of UN cabinet, and he have a big experience on UN processes and organizing the UN Water Conference. Johannes, you will take the floor to moderate the discussion. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mohammed. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I'm very happy to have the honor to moderate this event from here on. I want to first invite Maaike. She is the water envoy of the Netherlands. Many people know her in this room, to give some reflections on the 23 conference, because as we have just heard, we want to build on the conference. We don't want to start from square one or square zero again. So Maaike, please, if you would give your experience from the 23 conference.
Thank you very much, Johannes, and I'm honored to be here to present some reflections on the 2023 water conferences and link it towards the 2026 Water Conference. And of course, the Kingdom of the Netherlands organized the 2023 conference together with our brothers from the Republic of Tajikistan. And we thank you all for the collective actions that followed the conference, because I think the first lessons is it's not about a conference, it's about the run-up to the conference and the follow-up of the conference. And we set out to organize the conference with 3 key themes: inclusivity, action orientation, and cross-sectoral collaboration. And it's always dangerous to grade yourself, but let me try. I think we did okay on inclusivity, and you can always do better. And I'm happy to hear from the co-hosts for the 2026 conference that they're investing in this. And I know there's people around this table who have good ideas on that. The second thing we set out to do was action orientation. And I actually give ourselves a high grade. And that's a high grade for all of you, not only for the Netherlands and Tajikistan. Because I think with the 800 commitments in the Water Action Agenda, and the follow-up, that's now in full swing, we actually made sure that the conference was not just a talk shop, but actually created the momentum and a movement around water action in the world. And wherever I see the Water Action Agenda being implemented. And the third thing was cross-sectoriality. And I do think that in that respect, there's still some way to go. We heard the Minister of Egypt talk about water at the heart of climate action. I'm with him in doing that, but I also want to have water at the heart of agriculture action. I want to have water at the heart of health action. And I think we really need to make sure we don't get stuck in the water bubble, because the water is not a sector. Water is something which is really important in a lot of other sectors. So in Stockholm, we handed over our hostship, and we presented this little magazine with some of the stories of the Water Action Agenda. And we're very happy that the UAE and Senegal are now taking over. And I think multilateralism, as the Senegalese minister said, is all about consolidation and incremental progress, because it's difficult with so many countries, so many stakeholders. And I'm happy to see that we're actually consolidating and making incremental progress. Think about it, just in the past few months. In Brazil at the G20, there was a call to action on strengthening drinking water, sanitation and hygiene services. These kind of G20 events are really important, and we know that South Africa, the next chair of the G20, will continue, we hope, Madam Minister, with putting water on the agenda. We saw the appointment of Her Excellency Ibu Retno as the Special Envoy for Water at the UN. Bigger club of water envoys, I'm always happy with that, but a very important position to really keep water on the agenda. And just next week, we'll see the launch of the final report of the Global Commission on the Economics of Water. We're very happy to convene that as the Netherlands. That will bring us forward with a new global agenda on how to manage water in a changing climate. So we're looking for consolidation and making incremental progress. Thinking about the 2026 conference, there's something really different between 2023 and 2026. 2023 was the first one in 40 years, and we didn't know where we were going. 2026 is the second one, and I've learned to count one too many. We hope many more, and we know there's already going to be a conference in 2028. We also know that we're in the middle of defining the post-SDG agenda, and we want water to be prominent in that. We know that the COP process is going on, and we also know that some things might not be possible in 2026, such as a negotiated outcome, but may be possible in 2028 or in the next one or the next one. So my call on the Senegal and the UAE, and my call on all of us, we're not retiring, is that we really take that idea of consolidation and making incremental progress very seriously. And part of that is looking backwards, and I think the Water Action Agenda is something to build on and might be an updated one of it, might be an outcome of the 2026 agenda. We, of course, would like to see that. But also looking forward and thinking, how does this outcome, how will the 2026 outcome be the basis for the 2028 outcome? And how do we really, because water is a bit of an orphan in our multilateral system, and how do we see the 2028 conference as a step into anchoring water in a more sustainable way, more institutionally, in our multilateralism? And that's a big question. As I said, we're not retiring, we're here to work with you, and we look forward to doing that. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mike. I remember very well how many of your colleagues and from the Dutch embassy and from the whole community were so busy in preparing this. And you are right, the one big difference from 23 to 26 is that we now have a starting point. And the other very big difference, and let me speak a little bit only for a minute or so here of my own experience in the preparatory process in the UN, is that now we have time to prepare it well, and we already know where we want to go really, and we are 2 years away from the conference. So that is a really big difference to the last conference, where we had to find our way into how a conference works, into what is possible. Now we know that. Now we have a totally different starting point insofar, and we can handle the limitations that a UN conference gives us or has by default, by its mandate, by the mandate that it has. It's the modalities resolution that we have. It has been already referenced, and I'm here to moderate. I'm not here to give you a talk, but I need to take 2 minutes so that you all know what the conference that has been decided is. The conference will have the part where the heads of states will come and give their interventions, and the conference will have 6 interactive dialogues. And in the 6 interactive dialogues is where the real substance happens. We need to decide about the interactive dialogues, or not we, but the co-hosts of the conference need to do that in a consultatory process with all the other member states. And these 6 interactive dialogues will then lead to an outcome. And the outcome that we have, that we can produce, is another document. It's not a negotiated, as Maike has said, agreement that will enter into force. It's recommendations, it's opinions, and it's a summary of the conference. That is what we have at the moment. But because we have the 2 years process, and we have the offer from Senegal to host a preparatory meeting, we can actually condense much more substance than we were able to condense for the 23 conference into agreed opinions or coalitions or methodologies or agreements. And we can then adopt those in the 26th conference and start with the process that we had in 23 that leads us here today. That was the process of the follow-up resolution from the conference. We are only here because we had a follow-up resolution that was negotiated by some of the member states that sit here today on this table. If we have a good follow-up process from the 26th conference, then we can do what Maike has said. Then we can really build very quickly into systems that actually have a meaning, that we can actually implement, and that are a bit more than recommendations. But now I think I've talked enough. I just wanted this to be very clear. We have a different chance this time than in the 23 conference, and it doesn't lessen anything that Tajikistan or the Netherlands have done. It is just a different thing. We are here today to take stock of the 23 conference. Maike has already done that very nicely. And we are here to discuss and to hear from our representatives what is a success for the 26th conference. What are your desired outcomes from the point of view of your countries? What are the thematic priorities we need to handle in the interactive dialogues? And how can we really make sure or support this intercop process that Minister Sevilam has already referenced in his introductory remarks? So this is the framing for our discussion today, and I would now like to go back to my real role as your moderator. We have first a roundtable where we have national perspectives from representatives of member states. And I would like to first give the floor to Minister of Water Resources from Iraq, His Excellency Ayun Deab Abdullah. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Sorry, also I am going to speak in Arabic. أصحاب المعالي، أصحاب السعادة، السادة السيدات والسادة الحضور، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. لا يخفى عليكم حجم التحديات التي تواجه شعوب ودول العالم اليوم في مجال موارد المياه نتيجة اتساع الفجوة بين العرض والطلب واتساع شحة المياه العذبة والافتقار إلى الموارد المتجددة علاوة على الهدر الحاصل على مدى كبير في توسيع هذه الفجوة. يزداد الوضع تعقيداً مع الزيادة السكانية المضطردة، ومن المتوقع أن يؤدي تغير المناخ إلى تفاقم الضغوط الحالية والمستقبلية على الموارد المائية نتيجة التغيرات المتوقعة في توزيع مياه الأمطار وذوبان الجليد وغيرها. وقد أبرزت خطة التنمية المستدامة لعام 2030 أهمية المياه في الهدف السادس والخاص بضمان توافر المياه وخدمات الصرف الصحي للجميع وإدارتها إدارة مستدامة. في ظل هذه الظروف كان علينا زيادة كفاءة إدارة الموارد المائية في حوضي نهري دجلة والفرات بهدف تأمين المياه والاستدامة البيئية وتلبية احتياجات الحاضر والمستقبل، حيث أعدت الوزارة استراتيجية لموارد المياه والأراضي في العراق، والتي تمثل خارطة طريق لتنفيذ المشاريع الخاصة بقطاعات المياه لغاية عام 2035، والتي بيّنت أنه بحلول عام 2035 سيواجه البلد عجزاً مائياً بحدود 11 مليار متر مكعب سنوياً، وهو ما يتطلب إجراء إصلاحات في القطاعات المستهلكة للمياه لتحقيق الإدارة المثلى للموارد المائية من خلال تحقيق أمن المائي والغذائي والبيئي وأمن الطاقة. وإن الوزارة في طور المشروع بتحديث تلك الدراسة بشمول أثر التغيرات المناخية ومتغيرات التطوير في دول أعالي الأنهر على الموارد المائية في البلد. ولغرض مجابهة الشحة المائية والنقص الحاد في المياه عمدت الوزارة على اتخاذ العديد من الإجراءات، منها معاونة نهر الفرات الذي يشكو من شحة كبيرة بضخ المياه من المياه المتوفرة بعض الشيء في نهر دجلة إلى نهر الفرات عن طريق محطات ضخ عملاقة في منخفض الثرثار، إضافة إلى التوجه إلى الإقلال من الهدر في المياه، وذلك بتبطين جداول الري التي تعاني من مشاكل تشغيلية بتقنيات حديثة، ووضع خطط لحفر الآبار في المناطق النائية وذناب الجداول وننهض ذات المياه الواعدة وقليلة التراكيز الملحية لتأمين المياه الشرب كأسبقية أولى للتحول من الري السطحي إلى الري المغلق، والذي سيساهم في تقليل الفواقد المائية والسيطرة على توزيعات المياه وإزالة التجاوزات على المنظومة ورفع كفاءة الري. يعتبر مؤتمر الأمم المتحدة للمياه حدثاً مفصلياً لدعوة الحكومات والشركات والأفراد على حد سواء إلى اتخاذ إجراءات وتعهدات منسقة لتحقيق الأهداف والغايات المتعلقة بالمياه عليها دولياً، بما في ذلك تلك الواردة في خطة التنمية المستدامة لعام 2030، وتحديد جهود التكيف في قطاع المياه وتعزيز التعاون والترابط بين المياه والعمل المناخي من أجل تحقيق هذه الأجندة، وإلى تنفيذ مشاريع التكيف والتخفيف من آثار تغير المناخ التي تعيق المساعي التنموية في العديد من البلدان في العالم من خلال خطة العمل التي تركز على الالتزام بالعمل والتنفيذ المستدام والقابل للتوسع، إضافة إلى إجراء عمليات المتابعة والاستعراض. أنا في النهاية أشكركم وأشكر الشقيقة مصر والعاملين على هذا العمل على هذا الأسبوع، أن تتاح لنا مثل هذه الفرصة لحضور هذا المؤتمر والمساهمة في هذا المجال، وشكرا لحسن إصغائكم والسلام عليكم.
Thank you, Minister. I think we can already start noting down some priorities for the interactive dialogues. I would like to give the floor now to Her Excellency Pemi Majudina, Minister of Water and Sanitation from South Africa. The floor is yours, Madam.
Moderators, thank you very much. Excellencies around this table, honorable guests who are in this room today, good afternoon. I come from South Africa as a Minister for Water and Sanitation. I'm 2 months in the office as the Minister for Water. During the AU High-Level Summit Panel event of the 78th United Nations General Assembly, UNGA, in 2023, the Republic of South Africa committed to host African Union investment program. And that investment program is aiming at the investment summit that will take care of the challenges that are facing us as the continent, because not unless we get patrons who are patriotic to understand that water is life, therefore, investing in water is to invest in life, is to invest in people. Water is not an isolated matter. The commitment was then announced by my president, His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa, who said at the time, South Africa will take the hosting of this water investment summit of the continent. We are not doing that as South Africa. We are doing that on behalf of the 54 countries of our continent, because we believe we are one family. We hosted the first World Cup, Soccer World Cup in South Africa, and that was not for South Africa. We're hosting that on behalf of our continent. Come 2025, for the first time in the soil of Africa, South Africa will be hosting the G20, not hosting it for ourselves as South Africa, but we are hosting that on behalf of the continent. What is the roadmap, therefore, towards the 2025 G20 and the 2026 UN Water Conference that is going to be co-hosted by UAE and Senegal? 2 weeks ago, I was in UNGA. I met both Senegal and UAE. I pledged our unwavering support for them to host in 2026. We will journey with you to ensure that 2026 UN Water Conference become a success. In 2025, as we host the G20, all leaders will come to South Africa. So it is important that we have built up events towards the G20. A critical and a very fundamental build-up becomes this water investment summit to be hosted in the continent. We want to raise the issue of water very high. We raise it very high because most of the countries of Africa, 54 of them, their population is growing, the infrastructure is aging, there are leaks throughout our infrastructure, and therefore we must arrest the situation. We can only do that when we encourage the public-private partnership to invest in water. It is important to note that the current G20 document does not capture water as a standalone track. We don't want to be an appendix of anything as water. You cannot replace water by anything. You can try to do without electricity for a day. You can do some other means to get heat, to cook. But with water, unfortunately, you can't. You can't stay a day without water. And therefore, we in the water sector must walk, talk, sleep, jump, laugh, cry water throughout. Water must be put on the top of the agenda by our leaders. The AU and the AIP International High-Level Panel of Water for Africa, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, are countries that are already committed to support Senegal and UAE as the co-chairs of the 2026 UN Water Conference to use the presidency of the 2023 Water Conference. And therefore, in Stockholm, during the World Water Week, we further consolidated as Africa to say we must ensure that when Senegal and UAE host, that becomes a success. It cannot die in our own hands. It will never die in our own hands. Instead, we are going to prosper through this UN Water World Conference. All the countries listed above have the interest of ensuring that there is a stepping stone of a clear roadmap. Hence, our focus in South Africa is that of hosting the Africa Water Investment Conference and the G20. And we are saying in that G20, water must also be on top of the agenda, and there must be sideline engagements in the G20, which will be in preparation for the for UN World Conference on Water. As I close off, honorable moderators, I become very passionate when I talk about water. I become very hot. The 79th UN General Assembly, the African Union and the partners released a joint communique where we were committing that we'll journey together to ensure that we deliver 2026 water conference by association. Because when there is Senegal there, we are right inside. When there is UAE, they are part of us. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. I think this is exactly the spirit that we need to create success in our next conference. It is really important that people come with a united ask to this conference. Let's not get bogged down into the nitty-gritties of bureaucracy or geopolitics. Let's really put forward what the people need. Thank you for this. So, according to our screen, the next speaker would be His Excellency Schlettwein from Namibia, but I don't see him in the room. So I would like to cordially invite His Excellency Joseph Utese from Nigeria. He is the Minister of Water Resources and Sanitation. Please give us your views. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me once again appreciate the government of Egypt for holding this combined Cairo and African Water Week. From the reflections of the different speakers, I think it's very, very important to enhance that cooperation from the community, national, regional, and continental levels by way of technological transfer. The UN 2026 Water Conference is going to be a very important conference as it will create room for that adaptation and mitigation of water management. It is also going to be a very good forum where there will be that opportunity for us to discuss issue of investment in the water, sanitation, and hygiene activities. Just as all the speakers have spoken, we cannot do anything without water. We speak water, we dance water, we eat water, we do everything water. We Nigerians who want to join the rest of the world in preparation for that particular conference. And our prayer is that by the grace of God, we'll be healthy and we'll prepare very well, taking into considerations our achievements and our challenges, where we are yesterday, where we are today, and where we want to be tomorrow in that conference. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Your Excellency. I think we will continue in our program here, and our next speaker is Mr. Seato Hiroyuki. He's the Director General for Water Resources in the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport from Japan. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Johannes. And Your Excellency Professor Hani Sueram, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. As I introduced, my name is Saito Hiroyuki, and I have two titles. One is Director General, Water Resource Department, Ministry of Infrastructure, Japan, and the other is I am a Secretary General for Water Cycle Policy of Japan. Since the UN 2023 Water Conference, there have been many achievements through cooperation between Japan and Egypt. Last year, we held a follow-up session to the UN 2023 Water Conference at the last Cairo Water Week, COP28 this year, the 10th World Water Forum, and the Dushanbe Water Conference. I believe we have been able to make progress cooperatively on both the AWARE initiative led by Egypt and the Kumamoto initiative for water led by Japan. I also understand that as a result of Your Excellency Professor Hani Sueram leadership at COP27, hosted by Egypt in 2022, discussion on water will finally be intensified at the COP29 in Azerbaijan in November. Japan, in cooperation with other G7 countries, as a member of the G7 Water Coalition, also argues the international society to discuss water and climate issues. I believe such activity also contribute to link the discussions on climate change and water. Japan would like to make various efforts to discuss climate change and water issues in an integrated way. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Hiroyuki. Maybe this is a better pronunciation than my first try. I had promised you national perspectives when I start the moderation of our first part of the panel, but now I realized that that was a wrong promise, because now I would like to invite Ms. Florica Finkoya. She's the Director of Environment for the EU, so now we have a multinational viewpoint. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And first of all, I would like to really thank Minister Svilam and Egypt as a host to allow us here to have such an important session, and also extend my gratitude to the excellencies from UAE and Senegal to ask us for inspiration. I think this is also something very important, that you are open to listen to ideas. So thank you very much for that. And as I'm in the mode of thanking everybody, I would absolutely want to thank Maaike van Keningen, but also Tajikistan and the Netherlands, because without that, we wouldn't have, without you, we would not have had the water action agenda. And that's where we build upon. I think this is really the starting point. And contrary to perhaps what has been said, I think it is already on the forefront of the minds of politicians that this sustainable development and integrated water management goes hand in hand. And water is, unfortunately, one of the decisive topics for the next decade, and certainly under the UN Water Action Decade. Maaike, you said we had the very important outcomes already on the water agenda exchanges in Brazil from the G20. I'm absolutely without any doubt that under the South African presidency, we will have and see important stepping stones also in 25 towards the next conference. So I think there are a multitude of multilateral or high-level gatherings taking place. I think we should also not forget that we now have a clear pathway, not just for one water conference, but even for a second in 28. So I think this also encourages us to be very concrete. We cannot just hold a conference. It is expected that we deliver. We had a strengthened mandate for UNEP. We had also a very important ministerial declaration at the World Water Forum in Bali. And I think we have now this approach that the UN-wide strategy for water and sanitation means it is to be factored into across the UN system, which is for us as EU extremely important. And finally, we also have the UN Water Envoy. So a lot have been achieved, so we should not forget that. And that should encourage us to say even more we can achieve in the next edition of this conference. And let me say, therefore, a little bit like what we would perhaps, some ideas which we would like to bring forward. I think, first of all, in the next conference, we should really show progress. We should show that the implementation of the existing commitments is taking place. Otherwise, we don't get the world, the politicians, the people with us. So we have to demonstrate there is tangible outcomes also of each interactive dialogue. And I think this transformation is already taking place, but a sort of stock taking and encouragement, and also saying we watch you and we monitor you because you have to go on 26 and render accounts is perhaps also a message that you can pass. I can say for the EU, we are on track with our 33 commitment for sure, and I don't want to go into details, and we also have committed and continue to commit a lot of 1 billion already to water management throughout with our partners. A second recommendation I would put forward is, yes, we have a lot of meetings, and you might say this is already enough, but we think it would be interesting to see also regular intergovernmental cooperation and transboundary cooperation at regional level. And that is perhaps something where the UN Water Conference in 26 could look at. Potentially see how can we establish a bit this more regular intergovernmental processes on water at regional level, just as an idea. A third one is, and I think others have said this as well, we put a lot of attention to a cross-sector cooperation, to cross-level cooperation. And that would mean that we have to encourage state and non-state actors to come, public and private partnerships, obviously, also for the funding. But it might be an interest for you to reflect that whom you're inviting for the next conference, because it might be important not just to talk to the water community, but perhaps to those sectors which are absorbing a lot of water, and that is energy and agriculture. Not to stigmatize, but to tie them in to get synergies, to look together at solutions, because only together we can, with cooperation, we can have solutions for the mounting water challenge. A fourth idea might be to say that we really build, and I think others have said it, to build on the interactive dialogues that we had already. We had 5 so far. And I have to say, together with China, we were very proud to co-lead one interactive dialogue too. We found this is also our responsibility as big economies to do so. So I hope we will also build on these dialogues and not reinvent totally the wheel, although I'm not excluding that, of course, and that is one of the final remarks. We will have new challenges and we will have also new recommendations, new ideas coming forward, for instance, by the Global Commission on the Economics of Water, which is next report. And there they might also encourage us to see water not always as a challenge, but perhaps also as opportunities. And that goes including even in revenue generation, in everything. We have to think more solution-oriented, more positively. So I think in conclusion, if we can inspire you with these 5 ideas, then perhaps I think we should definitely remember that whatever we do in the next steps, and there are many steps, including under the G20 in South Africa and other meetings that take place as preparatory meetings, that we really think holistically. There is a link between water, climate, biodiversity, but also peace and security. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Florica. You had almost 6 recommendations for 6 interactive dialogues. I would like to thank all the speakers of our first round. So maybe you can give them a little overall applause. I think it's really important that we get these national perspectives into the discussion how we set up this conference. Now, I'm German, so I'm always a little bit nervous when we are running a little late, but I'm also half African because I think it's important to do this discussion. So I want to switch over to our second part, and we also want to, and this is especially important because Maike and all the other people who were involved in the 23 conference, we know how difficult it is to be inclusive. It is really a challenge, and the Senegalese and UAE colleagues will face that same challenge now. So our second part here is trying to reflect a little bit the views from different stakeholders. So we have people here from MDBs, from the civil society, from NGOs, from the UN, and from the private sector. And I would like to invite our colleagues now for another short impulse that we want to give to all the audience, but especially, of course, also to our UAE and Senegalese colleagues on some of those major topics or the major impact that we would like to support or see in the 26th conference. So our first speaker on the list was somebody from the World Bank. I don't know, we don't have the World Bank at the moment. Then I would like to invite Sareen Soreen. Civil society first should be normal, and women first should also be normal. So I don't know why I tried to introduce a male from the World Bank. So I hope Soros will excuse this little faux pas. So Soreen is the Executive Secretary of the African Civil Society Network on Water and Sanitation. Please.
Thank you very much, Johannes, and the Vice Chair for the Sanitation and Water for All Partnership. Assalamu alaikum, Egypt. Thank you for having us and hosting this wonderful conference, Africa Water Week with Cairo Water Week. So first of all, pleased that an ask that we had in Bali and Stockholm has been fulfilled, which was the preparatory conference that we had requested for prior to UN 2026. So it's really excellent news that something is taking place in December next year. And this makes me optimistic that our concern that we were not being heard or given a seat at the table as civil society organizations might actually be addressed. And we are here to provide all the support in terms of the coordination of this voice to make it on the table. So that is really excellent news all round, and I can't wait to share it with the larger civil society constituency. Number two, in terms of the recommendations, I know Micah had mentioned this the last time on the issue of governance. And it's really something that needs to be brought back again with much stronger emphasis. This morning, Honorable Sir Wilhelm's speech was really insightful, but also touching in the sense that if governance is not adequately addressed, it can lead to really delicate situations. And while we talk about governance, really, we generally focus on, the utility, the legislation, money didn't make it towards the project, which are equally important. I think Professor Sir Wilhelm's discussion this morning brought a much more somber and a much greater emphasis on the issues of governance, that if this orientation is not addressed, it can really lead us to some serious issues. In fact, Honorable Sir Wilhelm, your speech was so impassioned that the civil society actually started mulling over and discussing how they can actually start getting involved in this issue, of which we are ashamed to say, and you will forgive us, that maybe was a bit unclear to us. But this morning, I believe it definitely was. Number two, I think on the issue of financing, but that I know Alex will really get into it, but in terms of linking it again to the issue of governance, Honorable Schlettwein was very right this morning when he mentioned that, African economies are small and generally resource strapped. And on top of that, we have issues with, our integrity. Let's just put it this way. And I think this is something that really needs to be addressed yet again. All too often across the continent, we read too many articles or look at too many reports of leakages on this continent, generally with the programs. Most of the time, we don't find the project, or it's a half-baked project on the ground. And last but not least, and I'm so sorry, but for those that know me, you know that I cannot end the discussion without it, is the issue of women and girls, yet again. I would really like to thank Honorable Pema for putting their weight behind the youth and gender strategy. And I do hope that it will inspire the other regions to do the same. We must find solutions and a way to address this issue. The continent alone has about 10 countries that have gender-responsive policies. We have to try and expand it to all 54. Where there's no budget, there's no policy. Where there's no budget, there's no system. So we're really hoping that those 3 recommendations that have been made will be taken up, and we as civil society pledge our support in ensuring that all these voices are heard. And I know we've had a number of discussions that will be at the table, and we will bring the data, and we will bring those voices towards you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sareen, and behold UN bureaucracy. But it is a really important point, I think. Next on my list is Mark Smith. He represents an NGO. He is the Director General of UMI, so it's the Water Management Institute that is part of the Skigar family, and Mark is in Colombo. Floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Johannes. And Excellencies, thank you for your really motivating comments that we heard in the last round of discussion. And I want to thank also Senegal and the United Arab Emirates for picking up the baton of leadership around this process, and assure you that from the International Water Management Institute, please count on us to support this process and help to bring together and motivate the wider networks that we work with to really make this a success. I'm not going to give you a list of what I think is should be the priorities, because I think there's no shortage of these lists, and we can all make such a list quite quickly. What I would like to orient us toward is that to ask the question, well, what's missing on making progress? What's really missing on moving ahead, on being able to work with the degree of acceleration that the global context requires from water to make the change at the kind of scale that is needed and with the urgency that's needed. I had the benefit just very recently of being able to review a book written by Roberto Lenton, which will be published next year, on the history of the global, the international architecture for water. And he traced it back to post-World War II and then through to, and really picked up the story about 30 years ago with the Rio Convention, with the preparation of the Rio Conventions and all that took place in the international agenda in that era. And the point he made was that over the course of those 30 years, we built an international architecture for water that was really effective. It helped us in creating the agenda globally that we're all here talking about, and that has been, took us to the SDGs, took us to SDG 6, right? And he talks about how that happened, as you said, Micah, with incrementalism. So the challenge that I want to pose for this conference is, if the real gap is around acceleration, being able to work with the degree of acceleration that we need and at the scale of impact that we need, then do we have the institutional architecture now in 2024 or 2026 that we need for that next 30 years of the agenda? And I won't presuppose the answer, but I think there's some weaknesses in that architecture. But also I think we're at a moment of change. We've had the 2023 conference, we have the Water Action Agenda, we've had COP27 under Minister Suilem's leadership, we've had COP28, we've had the Global Biodiversity Framework, etc., etc. We're at a point of inflection in change in this institutional architecture. So, what I would wish for this conference is that coming out of this, we have a much consolidated future forward-looking global architecture for water that can help us address the needs as they exist now and as they're going to exist. And they're quite dramatic, we know that, as they're going to exist in the coming decade and 2 and 3 decades. And I think I'll leave with a couple of suggestions on the ways to do that. One is with the interactive dialogues and building on the Water Action Agenda. There's 800 commitments to the Water Action Agenda. We all understand that's quite a few. So how can we use the interactive dialogue component of the conference to really set what I would call a mission-oriented agenda that brings all of those different actors together into alignment around an acceleration and scale process that builds on the emerging institutional architecture that we have for water, and that plugs into, I think, this suggestion of this proposal that we hear more about, of having an inter-COP process relating to water and trying to formalize that, and can we do that with this strong mission orientation that drives collective action, that drives intersectoriality was your word, Mike. And we'll see where that takes us in terms of being ready for the next 30 years. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. I just got the info from, the organizers that we need to start wrapping up in 10 minutes. So we now have Alex. He's the Executive Secretary of the Global Water Partnership in Southern Africa. So can you please give us your views and, what would be for you the most important points for the 26th conference?
Yeah, thank you, moderator, and thank you, UAE and the Republic of Egypt for organizing this conference and Senegal. I bring you greetings on behalf of His Excellence, President Jakaki Kikwete, who is the chair of the Global Water Partnership Africa, but also the alternate co-chair of the International High-Level Panel on Water Investments for Africa, who unfortunately is not able to join us here. So I have 3 points, but before you go into my points, I have been given one directive by my boss. I have many bosses on the International High-Level Panel for Africa, which I head, the Honorable Penny Majodina, just to build on her remarks that she is inviting the ministers that are present here for a high-level breakfast, consultative discussion on Wednesday, to continue to strategize on how best to contextualize the Africa Water Investment Summit within the context of the G20 presidents of South Africa. So, honorable ministers, if you did not receive an invitation, you have now been invited in person by the minister. So back to my 3 points. Last month I was at the UN General Assembly and I attended a consultative discussion like this at the UN Permanent Mission, which was the first consultative meeting around preparation for the UN Water Conference. I said 3 things. And I'm going to repeat them here because I realize there are many new faces that were not there. We went to the UN 2023 Water Conference with high spirits as Africa, led by the African Union as well as the African Ministers' Council on Water, AMCO. It was the first conference in many, many years. We were launching the International High-Level Panel report on how to mobilize up to 30 billion investments for Africa. That event took place, lots of high-level delegates attended. There was also another event that was planned. This was supposed to be the launch of a high-level campaign by heads of states on how to mobilize resources. And the leaders had said we need the leaders themselves, the heads of themselves, to commit. That event was postponed. Why was it postponed? The 3 leaders who are the chairs of the high-level panel conferred, the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, then Mark Rutte, the President of Senegal then, Macky Sall, the President of Namibia, and President Kikwete. And they agreed, through some consultations, to postpone the launch of the International High-Level Campaign, Mind the Gap, Invest in Water. And the reason why they did that at the very last minute, they said, there are no heads of states here. We can't be making these sort of commitments when the leaders themselves, water is too complicated. This conference has been organized after many years because the ministers of water hit a block. They have to negotiate with the Minister of Agriculture, they have to negotiate with the Minister of Energy, Health, on many issues, including on budgets. So they need heads of states here to make commitments at the international level. But there were very few heads of states. And that event was postponed to the UN General Assembly in September, where there are heads of state, and it was launched. Our expectation and our call as the high-level panel secretariat on behalf of the AU is that UN 2026 must deliver a high-level commitment and physical presence of heads of states. It cannot be another World Water Forum or World Water Week. It has to be different. The second message we delivered at the UAE Permanent Mission consultation was the need for catalyzing transformative investments, initiatives that were at the UN 2023 conference. I think this has been mentioned by Florica as well as Meg. What do we do with the initiatives that were signaled to be the most transformative? The Africa Water Investment Program was announced by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres as one of the most transformative initiatives. But what has happened since then? So how do we report on progress in 2026? And there are many other initiatives, including some by Xylem in the private sector, and also some from the European Union, and also from China. The final point was the issue of mutual accountability. How do we ensure mutual accountability? And therein comes in the issue of governance. You touched on governance, the issue of transparency within the sector, within the ministries themselves, because what ministries have to negotiate all the time with the other sectors on many things. Agriculture, 70% they use water. How do they plan their irrigation systems? The industry they pollute, the mining. Who gets blamed is the ministers here. How do we bring in mutual accountability within the sectors? How do you bring in mutual accountability between the sector, public sector, and the private sector, and also the civil society, and the international partners that are there? This has been very stressed. And how do you bring in mutual accountability on these commitments, the water action agenda? Many commitments were made. Who gets held accountable for that? Thank you.
Sorry for bullying here a little bit, Alex. I remember in New York we had this discussion that we need transformational, disruptive change, and the only thing that I was getting as a reflection was that I can be very disruptive, so please don't take it personally here. We have two more interventions to go. Stefan, you are currently the Director of Hydrology, Water and Cryosphere in the WMO. Please give us your view from WMO and the UN.
Thank you, Johannes. Excellencies, also from my side, congratulations, particularly to Egypt to convene this, but also to the UAE and Senegal to actually take up the battle and guide us to an exciting process. I also don't want to give now topics for potential interactive dialogues, but just a couple of reflections. And being almost the last speaker, a lot of good things were said already, so I keep it brief, promised. I did go back to the original resolution and let's remind ourselves, it is really about accelerating achieving SDG 6. That's what the conference is about. So that means ensuring the availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. And that means all the targets, which include WASH, so water supply, sanitation, but also water quality, water scarcity is there, but also many, many other things related to SDG 6, which are not one of the targets. For instance, the link to water and floods and droughts, the link to water and climate change, water biodiversity, ecosystem integrity, food and nutrition security, etc. So I think somebody else from the ministers already made that point, how important it is to bring in these other sectors or major users and stakeholders in the process into this meeting in the UAE. Second is on the location. I think I've been quite a few times in New York, and usually when I was speaking, it was in one of the small rooms in -1. But in 2023, it was exciting. Everywhere were water discussions, the whole UN building, in the General Assembly Hall and everywhere, we were discussing water. However, there was place for some 2,500 people. That means that a lot of the multi-stakeholder discussions were happening outside the UN building. I think the private sector hub, or I forgot the exact name, was a couple of kilometers, blocks at least away. The nature hub was yet in another building somewhere else in New York, and there were quite a number of events elsewhere, which really made it challenges to convene truly multi-stakeholder dialogue. So UAE has facilities to host more than 2,500 people. We know that, we know that well from the COP. So we are looking forward to really bring them also physically together, I think, and that can make a difference in the depth of the discussion. High-level commitment needs high-level participation. I think Alex made the point and others. If I have the numbers right, then there were some 100 ministers last year in 2023 and some 8 heads of state. So it's now up to us to really to make the case to make heads of states coming, because we really need these high-level commitments, and we maybe need to learn from the COP, from the climate COP, how they are able to convene 100 heads of state and they did this in Dubai last year, and how can we really bring them to water? So I think there we all need to weather to make that case and bring, beside the important water ministers, bring the Minister of Agriculture, bring the ministers of public health, etc., which is so critical. Building on the interactive dialogues of the past, I think that point has been made, and Professor Svilan mentioned really, I think it was visionary leadership of Japan and Egypt on interactive dialogue on climate, water for climate resilience and ecosystems or environment, I think. And one of the conclusions was the inter-COP process, so that between the COPs we need to coordinate water. But not only between the climate COPs, but also all the other COPs. There's one on biodiversity, I think in Colombia in 1 or 2 weeks. There is the, every second year, the UNCCD COPs on desertification. All these water messages and all these different COPs need to be coordinated and brought together. So I think that is included in the inter-COP process. So it's again, linking through the different sectors. And the last point, where the moderator is getting closer and closer, but I really want to make my last point, it's the fifth now. I skipped number 4. In the water sector, I think we are very good in problem paintings. You know, we often describe the challenges. I'm working for WMO, and I'm often speaking about climate change and water impacts. And that's very negative. You know, I always have bad news, and it's not fun to always describe all these increased frequencies of disasters and floods and droughts, and it's a lot about that. And I think for the 2026 conference, independent which of the interactive dialogue, but we need to have this positive connotation. We have to enter that. What is the solution? You know, what is the solution to some of the threats related to climate change, some of the threats related to biodiversity and the lack of integrity of ecosystems? Water can be a solution for water and food, for food and nutrition security, for sustainable economic development, etc., etc. So really, like having this positive entry point, not the disasters and hazards, but really, what are the returns of investment in water? So for me, working for the WMO, most of the things we're doing are costly for countries. So we ask for better observations, better monitoring and networks on the ground and in the space, more capacity to able to deal with all that data. But the argument should probably be, what is the great return on investment with investing in the water sector? You know, what are societal benefits? If we enter from that point, maybe we can have a lot of fruitful discussions in the UAE in 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. I have this song in my head about the bright side of life somehow. Thank you for the positive message. And last but not least, we have Javier Sierra. He is the country manager for Egypt, for Aqualia, and he also speaks for Aquafed. So here's our private sector, finally at the end. Please.
Thank you, Johannes. Excellencies, doctors, professors, organizers, colleagues, attendees, and all friends. As Johannes said, I'm here today representing Aquafed. Aquafed is the International Federation of Water Operators. We are, under Aquafed, we are more than 400 water and wastewater service providers from all over the world, and one of those is Aqualia. Let me give you a bit of background about Aqualia and the reason why I'm here today representing the private sector. And finally, I will give just 3 messages on what we believe should be the key points from the private sector point of view for the upcoming conference in 2026. So Aqualia is a Spanish water company. We have our head office in Madrid, and we consider ourselves like the Real Madrid of the water companies in Spain. We are operators, but also we design, we construct, we do the whole water cycle management, and we also invest. We are investors as well. We are present in 19 countries, and one of those countries, for sure, is Egypt. We came here to Egypt back in 2008, so it's been more than a decade that the company is here. We have suffered huge inflations, devaluations, and even revolutions, but we're still here, committed to this wonderful country. We have wastewater treatment plants here in Egypt for the government. And also, we have, for the government, for other ministries, we do desalination plants. We are very proud that we are the only private foreign company performing a PPP project, a public-private partnership project in the water sector here in Egypt, which is the New Cairo wastewater treatment plant. Let me repeat, we are the only private company doing a public-private partnership in the water sector here in Egypt since 2008. So let me go directly then to the messages that I would like to share with all the audience today. First of all is for sure, from the private sector, we believe that the conference in 2026 needs to move from the political level with intentions, ideas, strategies, policies, down to with the proper master planning, down to the deals level, meaning partnerships, projects, and contracts. The second is, and I think Meike has already mentioned before, we believe it's very important that for the next conference, we bring decision makers, not only for the water sector, but also for other sectors for which water is so important. And the final message is that we, the private sector, we do have the experience, we do have the know-how, the technology, the capabilities, and even we have the willing to invest. We are ready. We are looking forward to signing deals and memorandum of understandings in the conference in 2026, inshallah. Thank you very much. Shukran. Arigato.
Well, thank you for half a promise.
Johannes, if you allow me, I just have to leave because the Minister of Planning is waiting and she is the one who has the money. So
never let
and she's waiting for more than 20 minutes, and if she leaves, you know that we have no budget for the coming year.
No worries.
So I appreciate and thank you all, but I will hand over to my colleagues here, the big bosses, to wrap up. I wrote like 5-6 pages, but they also wrote many pages. So I will leave them to wrap up and then wish you all the best. We fully committed to the conference. We will do our best to participate in any preparatory meeting. I will summarize this and send them to you so that all the messages that were said will be delivered to the big bosses of the conference. Thank you very much.
Shukran, Minister.
Thank you, Minister. We have come to the end of our program. I think we just have to wrap up in a few minutes now. So we have our two host countries for the next conference. I don't know who wants to go first. Yeah, ladies first, please, Shaima.
Thank you. It's always ladies first when it's difficult situations, right, Serene? Yes. Okay, so I think we want to end here with reflections, and I really like some quotes here and there, and so I will be quoting a few people and going through the reflections. Johannes, you said we need to have a united ask, and I do agree. Mr. Smith, you mentioned that we need to ask the right question to ensure the acceleration of change. And then Your Excellency Pemi, you had such wonderful quotes, but I have two of yours. And you mentioned we need to invest in water. Invest in water is investing in life. And we don't want water to be an appendix. And I think we all agree on that. I wrote down some kind of 7 main points summing up the conversation. Water needs to be reflected across various sectors, not just within the water conferences, but within the cross-cutting elements, including the G20s and so forth. We want to enhance cooperation, vertical and horizontal, ensuring that stakeholders are given the opportunity to be a part of this change-making process. We also want to build on the 2023 Outcomes Conference and the interactive dialogue. There is emphasis on the importance of redefining and looking at the governance structure of water and redefining this international architecture of water. We also need to look at the opportunity that water will bring, and not just looking at it from a very skeptical angle, looking at the more forward-looking water to solution approach. We also, there was a lot of emphasis on the importance of high-level commitment, Alex, and the importance of bringing decision makers and political drivers into the discussion of water. And then there was a point mentioned by Dr. Stefan on the return on investment on societal and the societal impact. And so this kind of is more or less the reflection that we have discussed today. Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, Emma. Very, very short. Just few words of thank. I think we have raised very good issues. We have listened to all of the stakeholders. As we said, the road is open toward 2026. We will stay opened, and United Arab Emirates and Senegal would be very happy to receive any comments, proposals, and so on, ideas, in order to build this process together. And thank you all for your kind cooperation. Thank you to ministers, private sector, civil society, all the stakeholders. It is also your process. It will be your conference. It will all our conference, so we will be working together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, moderator. I will die if I don't say these 2 points. In South Africa, every Wednesday in cabinet, there is a standing item on water issues. We practice what we say so that you don't get the president not knowing what is happening around water. So I will call upon my ministers, honorable ministers here, that it is upon you to go and raise the issues of water, starting internally in your own country. Make it a point that you use the cabinet meeting to raise the issues of water. The second one is that we must take advantage and accelerate the implementation of the SDG 6. Here today, there are 7 steps towards the hosting of 2026 UN Water Conference. The first step was in Stockholm. I'm just talking 2024. The first step was Stockholm. That led us to Unga. From Unga to Cairo. From Cairo, we're going to Senegal. You have invited us here. We're going to Senegal for a pre-conference. From Senegal to Johannesburg, you're coming to me for the AU Water Investment Summit. Then you come back again to South Africa in Johannesburg for G20. Then there's the road to 2026. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Every road leads to Rome, we say, but actually here it leads to the water conference. And my last thing is, today nobody said water is life. So I think we really start to make sense. Thank you very much.